What's up, guys? Welcome to the Lore Reload. Always a pleasure to see all of you lovely people here. Finally about to get started. I am joined today with the one, the only lore runner. Usually we're doing some kind of pen and paper, but tonight we are not. That'll be starting back next week when Jesse's able to rejoin us, though it's not going to be Star Trek Adventures probably. Maybe, I have no idea. But tonight we're going to be talking about, the title is, Can You Rewrite DS9 and Voyager to Connect? We'll probably never talk about that, but at least that's what we're going to put there, right? Runner, how you doing, good sir?
Listen, Jesse asked me to do this, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to end your show right here, buddy. I'm sorry.
Do it.
Damn it, hang it, it's jammed. It's jammed. Do you have an anti-phaser field in here? Come on. Whatever.
I have the same thing, yeah, so don't worry. I knew that it wasn't going to work as soon as you pointed at me because I bought
Damn it! I can't even assassinate this guy. I can't work with him.
Bluff.
I can't work with him.
So that's what we're going to be discussing, and it's going to be fun and frivolity. You said you had a couple of ways that you would connect them. My question is Voyager is about being all alone and trying to make it home. So how are we rewriting it and why? Doesn't that go against the concept?
I mean, first of all, Voyager sucks and it's the worst show ever and I hate it. That's what my YouTuber comments think. As you should probably feel associative with since giving your video this morning. Those of you who haven't seen his video should totally go watch it because it's so true. People will just jump in and be like, oh my God, lore, and that applies to both of us. You must hate Star Trek.
Right.
You can't possibly spend all this time and money and effort on something you care about and are deeply invested in. The only possible solution here is that you absolutely hate it.
Yeah. Well, it's just frustrating too because usually the way it works, I do an entire series on it. So I'll break down a movie and that'll be about 20 different videos over like 2 months or something like that. It's not like I'm just sitting down and just writing all of the things I hate. And obviously, you forget the videos or episodes where all I do is talk about how good it is or how interesting it is. Because
that is unfortunately human psychology. I fight against that every day.
Yeah. So anyway, it does suck. That's how you get donations.
Voyager sucks, but we need those monies. So let's talk about why the top 5 reasons why Voyager needs to get shot in the face. Reason number 1, it's dumb and no, okay.
This brought to you by Trek Culture.
But remember, NordVPN. No, okay, so one of the things I've thought about, I do like Voyager. For those of you who don't know me or don't know my preference or opinion, I enjoy Voyager. Now, I can't call it that great of a show. It's more like a below average show that peaks into great periodically. Like that's how I would describe Voyager, right? The only thing that really helps salvage it for me is the cast. I've said that for years and years and years at this point. But the general structure of how I would restructure Voyager. I'd have them for those of you who at home who don't know this, I'd have them get home in season 5, probably at the beginning of season 5. And that would completely alter how the show goes from that point onward. Having stated all that, how do we connect Voyager more to DS9 and to TNG? Well, several people already mentioned ideas, and I do love the idea of having Ro on Voyager. The more I've thought about that, the more I've fallen in love with that idea. But the idea would be several connecting points that lead to the kind of launch off Voyager or are related to Voyager. Minor stuff, nothing significant, but here's one for you. Have the Equinox on DS9 or mentioned on DS9, right? Mm-hmm. This is making stuff up, obviously, off the top of my head, but something like, or how about another one? The Cardassian dreadnought has recently been missing, and there's an episode where part of a C plot or a B plot is they're trying to find this stupid ship and they can't. Fast forward several episodes, and over on Voyager we have Dreadnought, where B'Elanna finds it, and we make it an actually good episode. Stuff like that, right? Have there be references to some of the things, almost entirely set up, almost entirely the early stuff, right? And then, like you say, just have Voyager go off and do its own thing, which I've talked about many, many times, so I don't feel the need to rehash that. And then when Voyager comes back, this would be the other connecting point. Voyager now has to deal with the fallout of DS9. Because you and I just discussed this morning. The Treaty of Bajor happens. Right. There's just so much dangling open threads there. which to this day frustrates me that effectively haven't been followed through on, not unless you're counting STO. So have Voyager come back and deal with the consequences of that, actually follow through on some of the ideas of that. Now, Sildeer has an idea in chat there. What about if the Voyager actually encounters one of the 100, which I like that idea. That's a good idea. What do you think about that, Reloaded?
You mean in the Delta Quadrant?
Yeah. While they're out there, they
really
encounter one of the shotgun.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot you could do with that, I think, because we do know that they were aware of the Jem'Hadar. I don't know how much of the Founders they were aware of. You could actually go two different ways with that, too. If they were aware of the Founders, I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and see when that timeline fits. Or if they weren't, that could be curious. Especially maybe find them within Borg territory or something like that. A Founder was hiding.
So it's funny you say that. I was thinking something similar because remember that section I was writing, which would be my season 4, would have been the oh god we're in Borg territory, oh god season, right?
Right.
And having them encounter one of the 100 who has been successfully hiding and like working with him, probably like for an episode or 2 or 3, make it like a mini arc,
right,
of just trying to get that working in their favor. And of course, naturally, because it's a Founder, he's totally order bent and he starts trying to make Voyager operate under his rules, and it just kind of goes bad. You can see how that kind of drifts in that direction. But nevertheless, have them encounter the Founder and just be like, help, please. Right. How did you stay hidden? Well,
or something interesting, like they come upon a vessel, or they come upon a planet that has been in a battle or something like that, have a species that can fight the Borg, or a part of the underground that we kind of talked about. And they come across a Borg, and the Borg just turns and runs. Like, and isn't stiff at all or anything like that. Like the Borg realizes, sees them with their weapons, turns and runs. And then they have to find, like, what the hell is going on with this Borg that's apparently scared of them.
Yeah.
And then like you said, it could be they could learn that way. That, I think that could be intriguing. It just depends on how far you want to go with it. But if let's say they had B'Elanna and Tuvok chasing or whatever, the Borg runs off somewhere, B'Elanna and Tuvok get separated, and then one of them turns out to be the changeling, when the 100 knocks out like B'Elanna and then comes back. Mm-hmm. And then when caught, it's like, oh, I was just scared. I didn't know what to do. I don't know who you are. And then tries to manipulate them from that point.
Yeah, works through them kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I could see that. In fact, if you were going that route, I would like the idea that this is one of the 100 who has since reconnected with the Link and with the Dominion and is actively acting as a Dominion agent out here. Because it makes perfect sense that the Dominion would be trying to look into the Borg situation, because of course they would, right? They can't not know about the Borg.
Right.
So they would have to, and I like several people in chat have already asked questions like this. I hate to oversell the Borg, but I think the Borg would crush the Dominion like a bug. Because none of the Dominion's advantages help against the Borg specifically. So the Dominion trying to learn more about them, try to find some kind of weak point, try to find some kind of maneuver around them or destabilize them appeals to me. And if you really want to go full tilt with this, my answer for the Borg, my second answer for the Borg has always been the cooperative, right? How's this for an idea? How about the cooperative got pushed and like supported and funded by this Founder, by this 100? And this is the Dominion's solution to the Borg, is push the cooperative to remove the Borg from the board.
And then you could have it interesting. It could be like a Species 8472 issue where they have to choose between helping the changeling, who is being completely open about it. That way they could be completely open. Be like, yeah, we intend to take over the Federation in the Alpha Quadrant, but that really isn't going to matter if everybody's a Borg. So you can either help me or work against me. But at this point, the Borg is the immediate threat. I think, and even try to make that argument, I think we can agree. Maybe some people might not, but he might try to make the argument. I think we can agree that being under Dominion control is probably better than being a drone. Somebody could argue, but that might be his tip there.
No, yeah, I like that idea a lot because that goes from, do we choose the Borg or do we choose the Daleks?
Right.
To choosing the Dominion, which is versus the Borg, which is a lot more nuanced of a situation and actually involves some choice, because there was no choice between the Daleks and the Borg. Really,
Right.
there wasn't. The Daleks were the Daleks, and I'm calling them that because that's what they were. You don't negotiate with the Daleks until they get completely ruined.
Have you seen my theory on that, by the way?
Maybe.
I have a lore theory where I think, and I think the videos push that Species 8472 didn't really have any interest in Janeway or Voyager or humanity until Janeway made them a threat. And then you can actually look at some. Now it's just bad writing. Obviously, they were always meant to be the Daleks, but when you look at it, it makes more sense that they were just trying to scare Janeway and all of them away versus actually wanting the destruction.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. That could be really interesting, and then that could be how they get through Borg space.
Is they ally with the Dominion?
Yeah, is that
the cooperative?
And they help the Dominion to get stronger and get. And oh man, how horrible would it be? Because the way the Dominion's fighting them, they found a way to free the Jem'Hadar. They actually bred a gene in the Jem'Hadar that frees them.
Geez.
And so what they do is they breed the Jem'Hadar, Delta Quadrant Jem'Hadar, send them to get assimilated, and then have them come back after they've been assimilated. Or they start making their own. They got the nanoprobes or whatever, and they just start injecting them. And so every time they interact, the only one who's not assimilated is the changeling. The Vorta are assimilated. The Jem'Hadar are assimilated. How awful would that be?
That does sound appropriately terrible. Sorry, one second. I'm looking up dates. Because I'm curious to some. So forgive me.
I don't think the Borg could assimilate a Jem'Hadar. Don't we see a assimilated Jem'Hadar? I know we do in STO, but don't we see it in...
So the Borg assimilate a lot of things in STO.
Why wouldn't the Borg be able to assimilate a Jem'Hadar? I don't see why they couldn't. There's nothing about a Jem'Hadar that prevents them from it.
So here, this would line up even better. So my Borg season would be... I might have to restructure it a little bit now. I'm thinking about, because season 5 of Voyager was season 7 of DS9.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was going to have the Borg season be season 4, well, that lines up with a lot of things. Unfortunately, that would mean they would get back during the Dominion War, and I'm not sure if I like that. What do you think?
Them return. Well, I mean, it offers you a different view of the Dominion War. I think that could be interesting. I think it would be interesting, but do you want two series basically having the same plot thread?
Yeah, that's why I'm hesitant there. And as I hate to shove the Borg story forwards to 5 because I don't know what I'd fill 4 with at that point.
You know, an interesting thing is we take the beacons that they find to talk to Starfleet. We put that right when the war is the worst. And so they're getting reports back on how Starfleet is just losing threat after threat after threat. And then they run into the Dominion. They run into the cooperative.
Yeah, that would add weight to it, too, because now they understand.
Starfleet is being utterly annihilated, but now they have to sit here and help out someone who says, yeah, we're probably going to win that war, but on the bright side, no one's going to become a drone. But and how would the crew react to that? Especially once they find out the Maquis was destroyed, absolutely annihilated.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. Because one of the things I've said several times was one of Voyager's better ideas was changing the will they get home again plot to the they communicate with home plot, which they didn't do until season 6, I think. But it was a good idea. And yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. I think that them finding a way to reconnect and communicate and learning and finding out about the Dominion War during season 6, which is when it was effectively at its worst. I'm completely down for that idea. What's Voyager doing during season 4, though?
I don't know. I'd have to take a look.
Well, no. What the actual question there would be? What is Voyager doing during season 1? Is actually what that is.
Well, I mean, it comes down. it's like you said. I think we do it the way you built it. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, the idea has always been initial, and then Terranok, and then Conclave, and then Borg.
Right.
Right, the first 4 seasons. If we shove it forward, I need a new first season, effectively.
Well, they would just still be rebuilding and everything.
Yeah.
Because that's always that's what the season 1 should have been, trying to cope with the fact that they don't have enough power unless it's for a holodeck, and then and basically coming together, right? I mean, it would just be the internal struggle. A lot of it would be Maquis not wanting to work, Maquis turning on them, and then them basically forging it out.
Yeah.
But then when would it? So it'd have to be season 4 to hit the DS9.
No. Season 4 is season 6 of
Okay.
Voyager to DS9. So season 5 is season 7. That's the timeline. And in the Star Trek rewrite project, that's generally my guideline. Is I'm keeping the number of seasons and their relative placement relative to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So we get 6 Star Trek movies to deal with, and then we got TNG and blah, blah. You get the idea. That's the defining features. So 3 seasons of TOS, etc. Otherwise, we could just rewrite everything completely from scratch and throw everything out the window, which at that point, a little bit too much of a blank sheet of paper.
Could just write our own science fiction.
Yeah. At that point, I'm just going to go on and write the extant and just keep doing that,
I don't know. And then people are asking about Year of Hell. That could happen. Technically, that could happen after.
We were going to do it right after, if you'll remember. What the idea was, they had season 4 of the Borg. At the end of season 4, their escape from Borg territory involves them coming back to Earth. But while they're back at Earth, things would be just a little bit off in ways they wouldn't be aware of, but we would. And gradually they would become more aware of how off things are. And that's how, when season episode 10 or 12 or so of season 5, that would be the first time we reveal the Anorax, the time ship.
Right.
And then the Year of Hell would pretty much commence fully, and from that point on, and then the end of season 5 would be, reset buttoning all of that, and then season 6 was going to go ahead and be actually dealing with the consequences of the Dominion War and actually dealing with what's going on back home, that kind of thing. But if we shove things forward in 1 season, that doesn't line up all of a sudden.
Right. An interesting thing. This is a complete rewrite and off base of what we were talking about beforehand. But what if the Anoraks basically made the Borg as powerful as they are? So, and it probably wouldn't work, and it's completely off base. But I think that'd be interesting. So, you start off the episode with the Anoraks, and they're sitting there talking, and someone mentions, he's like, oh, look, that's Borg territory. And they look over, and it's like, oh, they now have two planets. We probably want to report that. Probably might become a threat or whatever right now. And they make it beyond clear that the Borg are a minor power. Mm-hmm. They then destroy the planet, and they find they're surrounded now. It's the Borg that we're aware of.
Yeah.
Which could be, and then you add that to the Year of Hell. I don't know. That could be adding too many things together.
So I like the idea. I want to restructure it a bit, but I'm going to do it by completely stealing from Star Trek Online. Have you ever played Star Trek Online? I know you have. Sorry. How far into it have you played? I guess is my question.
Sounds like I haven't gotten to. Well, I mean, depends. It's fine. You can ruin it for me. It doesn't.
Okay. So I'm going to go. I like to be nice and open about spoilers. So spoilers for late STO. This is the temporal arc of STO. Mm-hmm. Gonna give it a 3, 2, 1. So I love this. I'm gonna fail at explaining this. I had to actually have notes to explain this properly when I was doing the lore run of Star Trek Online. All of the game of STO was not the prime timeline up to that point.
Right.
Everything that happens in STO up to that temporal arc is actually a previous story arc, a previous timeline. During the events of the temporal arc, which again is still timeline 0, we'll call it timeline 0, we encounter the concept and technology of the time shifts. And thanks to using it and thanks to the conflict that happens therein, what happens is, because the time ship erases something across time forwards and back, mm-hmm. that irrevocably changes history and reverts it to timeline 1, the actual timeline from the shows. And that's the one where the way they tied this in was the sphere builders specifically, not the Borg. But it's almost the same idea as what you just mentioned, because the sphere builders were a peaceful member of the Federation who were actually with us. And then this happened, and now Timeline 1 takes over, and the events of Enterprise. Oh, it's brilliant the way they do it. But why not do something in a similar manner with the Borg? Why not? In fact, we could completely go full tilt with this. Rather than having them be a minor power that's not a big issue, have them be, say, the cooperative, the more diplomatic side of Borg. I've postulated on several times, the kind who will offer for people to join, right? Not a conquering power, but it's just, this is our society. You are welcome to join it.
Right.
And then they work with us, and they work with Star Trek, and they work the Voyager, and then there's this, then we encounter the time ship, and then we have the event, and then and now we're at regular Star Trek, and the Borg have always been this horrible, destructive, conquering force.
And you tie it back into TNG, where instead of it just being a lone cube, what originally happened was once they saved Q and everything, or once they saved Hugh from lore, Hugh was able to stop or reassess all of the Borg, and the Borg became the cooperative.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
And so they were successful.
So we tie all of it in together there.
And Picard was successful in basically changing the Borg, and now they're a society that trades and stuff. You could even have that with the what was the name of the race for the Anorex?
Kremen. The
Krenim. Yeah, even have it where the Krenim are talking about trade that's occurring with the collective or whatnot, and that the collective have offered, even bring up the collective have offered to introduce to something called the Federation. It's not sure, but now they have buoys that connect, and you have international trade. Oh man. I don't know if this would go too far, but you could even talk about how it's changed the Dominion by opening it up. The Dominion.
Oh God, that would be mean.
The Dominion. Thanks to
that would be tragedy. That would be horrible.
The founders ultimately had to admit that they couldn't fight the Borg and Starfleet and the Romulans and whatnot, so they did reforms. And then it just all starts back. There's a thing for saying going too much, like having.
I was gonna say that might be a little too far.
The happiest thing.
I like the one change thing, especially since it's still a tragedy.
Right.
We create the Borg effectively by changing history such that they are the Borg we know. I think I'd probably limit it to that one big change with the Borg. If I were to do that, I'd have to think very carefully. The advantage, this is the advantage we have. We are not 700 people working across 30 years. So we can actually sit down and map out this stuff and then lay seeds in advance, knowing where we're going with that, which is the advantage of front-loaded storytelling to begin with.
I mean, to be fair, they could have done that too. They just chose not to.
That is true. That's actually a really good point. If I could speechify for just a second, in TOS, did you know? You probably did. I don't know how many of viewers know. They actually had a whole guide, a whole Bible of this is how everything works. This is how everything should work. This is how everything should go. And it was supposed to line everything up and make everything nice and contiguous with itself with regards to characters and species and technology and all that stuff. And the writers ignored it almost universally. There were a few who didn't, obviously. Most of the staff writers were on board with that. But the numbers and numbers and numbers of scripts that were tossed in by people who only wrote one episode of TOS, they completely ignored all of them.
Right.
And so the reason I bring that up is because they had the power and tools and knowledge and ability to front load it, and they just decided not to.
Right. Well, yeah, I honestly, it also comes down to, we talked about this, people got to eat, right? I don't know. And it comes down to trusting the audience to come back once they see what you're doing, or getting the quick win so that your studio stays afloat and that everybody can come together. Because the more I go into this and realize how many people behind the scenes, like, the camera people, the sound people, and all of that, it makes me really appreciate when writers are like, well, we're going to try to keep the show on the air, because that's how everybody keeps going, the other thing I'd probably tie into it is kind of like you said with Timeline 1, is that they're never able to fix it.
Yeah.
And
I
then
like that.
They're never able to fix it. They might be what I might do is when they first do it, it's like an end game. The Federation is almost destroyed by the Borg, and the best fix is that they stay with the Delta Quadrant. That's the best case scenario.
Oh, that's mean at that point.
Because they're like, hey, we can. And you could actually, I don't know. There's a lot you could do that. You could have a conversation where, we could stop it all. We could destroy everything, or we could keep it where they're in the Delta Quadrant. And there's people would say, well, there's hundreds of millions of drones, but at least they'll exist. I mean, and then you have that conversation. And then it's like, well, I don't want to be a drone. Well, what about the people in the Alpha Quadrant who will still exist and have lives? Don't you want, and then you could have that conversation too. Mm-hmm. I can't. You don't care about spoilers, do you, when it comes to Picard? When it comes to...
I'm pretty sure there's nothing you can spoil for me at this point.
Well, something that just, I don't know, I hate it. So, spoilers for Picard, honestly...
Spoilers.
Yeah, you and I take a little bit of a different stance at spoilers, but spoilers for Picard in 3, 2, 1. The species with the gates that can go across...
Iconians.
Yeah. No, it's not Iconians.
No, I don't know.
In Voyager. Yeah, you've done a breakdown on it.
The Herosian?
No. They have...
The Vaudoir.
No. But we'll get it eventually.
All of these have these kind of things. That's why I'm like, okay,
no, they have gates. It's like it was in season 1. It was like the third episode or something stupid like that.
Hang on.
It's a society that's all about having fun.
The jackasses. That's who you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah.
The one where B'Elanna is like, I must break the rules, and Harry Kim is like, I'm on a planet super far away, and we can totally get home.
That one. So in Picard,
that's a dumb episode.
Yeah, but here's the thing that gets you. It shows you how powerful the Borg is. And I don't even think they realize the implication of it. The Borg have assimilated that species. Do you know how much of the Delta Quadrant that is? I think they threw it in to tie it into Voyager, but that's a lot of space right there. That's
Prime Factor, episode 10. You were right, season 1.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because, that's near the starting point of where Voyager was, wasn't it? So they've
that was way early. There it is, 40,000 light years teleporter. A 40,000 light year teleporter.
Right.
That's nuts.
And it's just a throwaway line because Picard is in the Queen's room, and he's like, Hugh's talking to him, and Hugh's like, this is something that happened after you were assimilated, so you don't remember. But we actually, the Borg actually assimilated a species, and then he brings down that teleporter because that's how they escape.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you realize that you just basically the Borg are the Delta Quadrant now? Is what that means?
Mm-hmm. I doubt they've even thought about that. So this. I'm sorry if I could talk for a second. I've been called a Borg fanboy. I feel that's extremely unfair. The problem is I've actually thought about the Borg. Mm-hmm. Like I've put thought into the Borg when the writers clearly have not, because the Borg, as described, should have won.
Right.
Already. Like before TNG started, the Borg should have just kind of done their slow sweep and we're done. Right. So forgive me for talking about this, but this feels like what you're telling me is yet another. Oh yeah, no, the Borg now have access to something even better than their mega transwarp, and they could just go. Okay, so have they won yet? No.
Only the Queen uses it in emergencies because
have they not actually won?
Yeah, that also does away with you think in such 3D ways, by the way, because she escapes in it. You think in such 3D.
That's such a stupid thing. We should talk about rewriting First Contact because movies are part of this too.
Well, I've been talking about that because I've been doing the breakdown for it. Mm-hmm. The way I would have done it, honestly, is I would have completely removed the First Contact aspect. I would have not had it been about that, and I would have had it almost exclusively on the Sovereign. It would have been a battle for the Sovereign itself, for me. And I would have tried to include DS9 because I think the perfect foil for Picard is Cisco. And I think that it would work. It would be so poetic, especially when you look at Emissary. to have Picard the unreasonable one who wants to kill all of the Borg, even if it means losing the ship, and Sisko the voice of reason.
No, I like that, especially since that would be season 3 of TNG, I want to say.
Right. When First Contact happens?
Here. I used to know the exact episode. I talked about it during the rumination, but that was like 2 years ago from my perspective.
You're talking about the movie, right?
Yeah. First Contact, the movie.
That wouldn't be season 3 TNG. You mean season 3 DS9?
I'm sorry. Did I say TNG? I did.
Yeah, I was like
DS9.
I was like, wait a
second. Sorry. I meant DS9. Sorry. That was in season 3 of TNG, right? The First Contact movie.
I was like, wait a second.
I've seen the tracks, guys. I've seen the Star Tracks. I got this.
When you mean the Sovereign existed at the same time as the Galaxy D?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Hang on, because I know it's actually 2 figures. There's the real life production time when it was released, and then there's the star dates, and they both coincide, but at different times. I know that. I just don't remember the specifics.
People are saying season 5.
I'm looking it up.
I know that it's mentioned real briefly. It's like a throwaway line.
It's actually mentioned before First Contact came out.
Yeah.
Because they didn't line up the release order quite right.
And it was like something that they just glossed over. He's like, yeah, thanks to some issues with the Borg. It's like, I think First Contact...
We're stripped pretty thin is the line. We're stretched. We're stretched pretty thin.
I think the Battle of Sector 001 was a little more than just being stretched. I don't know that that's how I don't think that's how I would have positioned that exactly.
So here's DS9 season 4. That was June of 96, November. So yeah, it would have been during season 5 in both intersections. In real life terms, that would have been, what is that, November 22nd. So that would have been right before the ascent, right? When Odo and Quark are going up that mountain to try and save each other's lives. That's about when First Contact was happening in real life terms, but in gameplay terms, in lore, I'm almost positive it's for the uniform. Is when the star dates line up.
Yeah.
50485.2. 50893.5. That's not quite right.
I would have had it while you're looking up. I would have had it for the Battle of the Sovereign, but if we absolutely needed to have another event, I just don't know. I don't want to do First Contact because what I'm going to do is I'm stripping away almost every non-main cast member. So Lily, what's his face, who gets assimilated in space and comes back because that's a thing.
Ensign, what's his face?
Yeah, Ensign or Lieutenant. I think it was a Lieutenant, wasn't he?
Lieutenant Expendable. I don't remember his name.
Yeah, and then I would have gotten Cochrane. I mean, they did it well. The B plot was done well, and I like it. I would jettison it, and then I'd have it for the Battle of the Sovereign of the Enterprise, or I would have tied it into DS9, and maybe had the Borg either try to assault. Tried to assault Bajor or maybe even the Prophets. Because I just think it would have been so powerful, and I would have made a trailer. I would have made the fastest trailer you've ever seen, where basically you have Sisko. Sisko looking up at the view screen, right? And you have all of the DS9 staff looking up at the view screen. They're terrified, or they're looking really concerned. And then it comes out to show DS9, and then a shadow overcomes DS9
because the cube is bigger.
Yeah, and then you see the bottom of the Borg ship, like you did before, and it goes back to Sisko, and it says, "Let Starfleet know," or "Hail Starfleet, tell Starfleet we've engaged the Borg."
Yeah, cut to black.
And then that's when the Sovereign, and then in the movie, that's when the Enterprise comes in. The DS9 is just getting the ever-living hell beat out of it because a Cardassian base was not meant to fight a Borg vessel. But their shields are somehow still there, and the Sovereign comes in, and then you get them together that way.
What I would do to line that up a little bit more, just to polish it a little bit, I would have the Borg cube ignore the station because it's so inconsequential.
Yeah.
But no, hang on. To continue to keep the station involved, they beam over like 3 drones. Right. Just a pittance. But the station is struggling with this pittance there because make it an internal battle. Make it they're dealing with the drones who are on DS9 who are just running roughshod
Right.
walking casually through the corridors, taking over entire sections of the station. O'Brien's constantly rewiring everything to try and disconnect certain sections of the stations before, the drone, to get ahead of the drone line,
And they're
And
they're
then,
even they're even saying, just shut life support or open it up
yeah,
to
just
section B.
open it up, yeah. Open every air dock from section 5 to 18. Are
Yeah,
there any
it's
people in there? Get them out of there right now.
right. And then even make that
Oh.
decision. It's like we still have people there. Well, it sucks that he wouldn't say that. He's like, just do it. Just we have to do it because there's not going to be anyone.
Oh yeah.
What would be scary too, though? I like that too, but what would be scary too, or what would be very Borg like, is if it really did ignore them, and you see DS9 just trying to lay into the Borg cube, and it just doesn't mean anything to him. It's like the Mars attack. It just keeps going, doesn't even respond.
That's not mutually exclusive, though. You could have, because they have all the upgrades for the Klingon War at this point, right? So they could just be unloading, and the cube's just walking right by, completely ignoring them, and the whole time they're just. And the best part, and I know Avery Brooks can do this, he can play desperate. He can throw his emotions right up to the front of his performance, and you could see him having that thing where you could almost see him visibly shaking as he's realizing that once again he can't do anything about this.
Right.
He is throwing everything at this personification of all that he hates, and it's ignoring him.
Right.
And that just destroying him emotionally. And that could, of course, lead to this being about Sisko's nemesis, in addition to because Sisko and Picard have the same nemesis.
You know what you do? Here's what you do. You put Sisko on the Defiant. Now, some people are going to be like, he should have stayed on DS9, but you put Sisko on the Defiant, maybe with Worf, and he's trying to fight the Borg cube. He's doing some damage, but while he's doing that, he's watching, and we have it be a time skip again. They go back in time for whatever reason, and he watches DS9 be assimilated. Like he sees, he's like, we're trying to fight him. There's nothing we can do, and then all of a sudden, all comms cut off, and it comes back, and it's Borg. He watches, and and if you don't want to pay for all of the actors, let's say that we can't because that'd be too much, you have like Kira and Dax. He watches Kira and Dax and maybe Bashir get assimilated on operations, and then after that he has to go on the Sovereign and help Picard.
I don't know if I feel that. I think we'd have to workshop that a bit, smooth that over a little. But I like the gist. I like the direction you're going.
Yeah.
Oh, I real quick, by the way, I was almost correct. It wasn't for the uniform. It was Blaze of Glory. That's what, Stardate-wise, that's where they line up. So in terms of real life time, it was the 9th episode of season 5. But in Stardate terms, it was the 23rd episode of season 5 is when First Contact happened. Like I said, there's 2 connecting points depending on what you use as canon there.
Yeah. And again, it may go back to being too much, maybe to take it too much, but I don't know. I always thought it might be interesting if if you want to use the time aspect, the Borg make a run for the prophets who they know don't exist in time or can time travel. And since the prophets are corporeal and the Q aren't, that's why they go after them. I don't know. There's a lot you'd have to do with that. You'd have to, like you say, we'd have to workshop the living hell out of that for it to make sense. Yeah. But it just, I think they missed an opportunity to have Sisko and Picard play off each other and some of the others. I think Geordi and LaForge and the best crewman ever, the best engineer. Yeah, that's a Lower Decks joke. He's the best engineer. And O'Brien playing off each other. And it could be really interesting to see those two work because you had 2 crews. I don't know how well DS9 was doing at the time. Maybe they just weren't getting the ratings to justify it. But from now, it would be excellent. People would talk about how First Contact was the best ever, I think.
I tend to agree. And again, the whole point of this project is we're not doing it from we have the limitations of studio and ratings. We're just rewriting the narrative. So I'm completely down with including the DS9 staff on the movie. I really think that would be a good move. And I like the idea of them going after the prophets, which would explain why they're at Bajor.
Right.
I also like the idea what I would do, and this is insanity on my part, admittedly, in the lead up to during season 5, when First Contact happens, I would do a bit of lead up, background chatter about how they're starting to lose contact with certain bases or whatever, or certain the USS blah 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 hasn't reported in yet. Just really little stuff.
What's
Stuff
the ship that always gets hit?
Oh, that would be the Saratoga.
So yeah, the Saratoga.
The Saratoga is just gone, and it's just little stuff that you would never even notice on first viewing.
Right.
Tiny little details like that, which would lead up to, and then probably like the episode before the intended connecting point, I would probably go ahead and have them. Most of the point of that episode would be a complete build up for the movie, just straight up build up to the movie. Then the movie happens, and DS9 is very involved. Bajor is very involved. The Sovereign shows up to help. Blah 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 blah.
You could do. I don't know if you've seen Game of Thrones, but you could Game of Thrones it a little bit, where the Federation even goes and warns the founders. It's like once they find out the Borg's on the way, unless they don't know until. Do you want them to find out in DS9? Like, oh god.
See, the thing is that I can think of two options there. I'm curious of your thoughts, which is better. Either the Borg effectively surprise drop on their face,
right,
so they get very little warning, like maybe a day warning, or, and I can't tell which idea I like better, the Borg have already hit Federation space and have been beelining for Bajor ever since they did. So there's lots of warning. It's just nobody can do anything about it.
And they can't figure out why. You don't let them know why until...
Yeah, there's just this cube that's carving this path unerringly. It's not even stopping. It's not even slowing down. Just going through Federation space, beelining for Bajor, and it's just... Okay.
Yeah, and that's the conversation. It's like we can't figure out why they'd be coming, and then all of a sudden, maybe they get a drone, or they just somehow figure it out. It's like, wait a second, they want the profits.
That Akira would love that.
she's the one to figure. She could be the one to figure it out, or maybe the prophets are the ones that warn them.
Ooh.
That they see it coming. That they say that's how they figure it out. Like the you have Kira going through. Like, okay, so they figure out it's carving through. They don't know what's going on. There's a huge thing. Should we let the Dominion know? Because they're like because telling the Dominion is basically admitting, hey, there's this strong enemy that we can't defeat, so we're basically in a weakened state. Or telling them at least they know maybe they can help us, or whatever. And so they decide, yeah, we're going to tell the Dominion, even though it's going to going to show our hand.
Check this out, because the end of season 5, so literally 2 episodes after the First Contact movie, when the Dominion War is declared.
Yeah.
So that's why. Is because they're like, oh, okay, well, we're going to do, it's a classic strategy. You hold back, let your enemies beat each other up, and then you go after whichever one won.
Right. In
this case, they're like, okay, hold back. All right, looks like they beat the Borg. Go. And that starts off whatever I can't remember the name of it.
When they start reinforcing. They even say that. They're like, we can't let another cube happen. So now that we have our ally, the Cardassians, we're going to make sure that the Borg can never hurt the Alpha Quadrant again. And we're just going to send fleet after fleet after fleet because we want to stop the Borg. We just want to protect the Alpha.
That's what we're here for.
That's what the Dominion is.
Want to prevent another Borg devastation. And this would, of course, explain why they signed the treaty with Bajor. We're here for you. We want to prevent another Borg invasion of your people. And imagine how much devastation could have been worse if we were not here to defend you.
Did you see the Federation? They barely won.
They couldn't do anything. They had to pull a rabbit out of their hat. That was nothing.
But,
oh my god.
But again, just to finish it, you have Kira go through the wormhole and the prophets come in, and they're the ones that say, hey, they're coming for us. That's what they want. They want the wormhole. They want to figure out a way to control time in their cryptic way that they always do, of course. But yeah, that could be really interesting. And then if we wanted to do I don't know, it's just, then it goes back to how do we, you could still have the time plot. So they maybe
really don't like the time plot. I was going to ask your opinion on ejecting the time travel from First Contact entirely.
I'm not a huge fan of it. I just don't think there's any real reason for it, and it creates more holes than it fixes. Because everyone says, why don't they go back in time at another location?
Yeah, it's just...
And it doesn't make sense. How does the Enterprise instantly know? Does Starfleet now have time travel, and why is that not a thing? Because the Enterprise E instantly does it. With chronotons, they can now just...
Yeah,
create.
decide to go back to time, and then they return with like one sentence excuse for how they get back to their own time. Just like, oh yeah, we figured out how to reverse engineer it.
That's what I'm saying. At that point, after first contact, they now have the ability to time travel. I'm not sure why when Starfleet was losing, they didn't just go back and try again and see what they could do. I mean,
All
you
right,
could say
let's take two.
Yeah.
No, okay. So yeah, I really like the idea of ejecting the time travel. If you're gonna hold a gun to our head and say, well, okay, you have to have first contact somewhere, I would move it. I'm not sure where, but honestly, I mean, insurrection is my actual first thought for moving the first contact plot. The actual time travel.
But why? Well, there's
the
no
event of
reason to
first
have
contact. Well, my point is, screw insurrection's plot.
Yeah, well, that's true.
That's point one. I'm just going to be nice and open about that. Insurrection's plot is irrelevant to everything. It has nothing to do with anything. It is an episode. It's not even just an episode. It's a throwaway. It's one of those one-offs, right? Not the procedural. The other or no, it is procedural. My bad. So just eject that plot entirely, and replace the 9th movie with the plot of going back and dealing with Cochrane. Now the problem is, the only reason I'm even doing that is because someone's holding a gun to my head saying I have to do the Cochrane episode, which is why I'm running into a wall on this one, because I'm not sure what to do with it other than, hey, it's first contact, right? I don't know what I would do with that. My first thought, since we're restructuring everything, is just throw that back into Enterprise or Discovery.
Yeah.
Throw that back into the before time. I guess Discovery was later, after Enterprise, wasn't it?
Discovery, Discovery was after Enterprise.
So never mind, ignore Discovery. I'm sorry. So yeah, throw it back to Enterprise. Make it part of an episode of Enterprise. Replace one of the completely unmemorable Enterprise episodes with First Contact, the episode, and have it just be all about Cochrane and the Vulcan moment and how that came together and how they killed everyone there with the rocket and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, you can just. Yeah, that's so stupid, man. I am on some kind of CIA list. I did so much research. They go out of their way to hide that. You have to actually look for it. And then I realized after I found the information, I was like, wow, I did like hours of research on this and it was probably hidden for a reason. And then you could have some like alien, make it a part of the Xindi arc if you really need to.
So that's another thing I wanted to mention. Sorry, you actually gave me this idea earlier and I dropped it because we started talking about First Contact. We were talking about how we have to revert from timeline 0 to timeline 1 at the end of Year of Hell, and that's what makes the Borg horrible, right?
Right.
Now, this would actually happen after First Contact, which could be even more appropriate. But point being, I'm just going to start calling it 8. It would happen after movie 8. Why not have the temporal accords that is, in practice, the temporal Cold War established in Voyager as a direct consequence of their solution to the Year of Hell?
Yeah.
Various factions throughout the timeline who watch time and have time alteration and viewing and travel basically all kind of come together and say, yeah, we're all okay with this solution, which deals with Voyager, shifts the timeline over. We're going to have some issues. We're going to have some Borg problems. And going forward, we're going to lay down some rules on time travel. And that leads to the temporal Cold War.
Yeah.
Because now they're all just eyeballing each other over the table, you know?
And SF Debris kind of had like an idea with the Borg on that. But I mean, moving it to the Year of Hell would be an interesting idea where at the end of the Year of Hell, you have like throughout it, you introduce and at points you bring in like the time agents or whatever. And not just the time agents, just have different sects come in and just do various things. And then at the end, they're having an argument maybe or something like that where it's like, well, look at the devastation wrought here. We have to correct this, this, and this, but we can't do that, or it's going to create a worse, or this is just a cluster. And they say, okay, we're going to let it happen. Like you said, we're going to let it happen the way it did. Basically, I'm reiterating what you just said, just adding different sects is what I realized. But yeah, at the end,
I'm with you.
At the end, you have an argument where they do agree, and that creates it. I still believe, and again, this is an SF Debris idea. I still believe that, and I would hate this in the alternate timeline where it did happen, but the NX-01 never existed, that they gave their lives. I think that's the best way to do all of it. honestly.
I still prefer my idea over that, but it is ultimately just a small step away from that idea. So I'm still kind of with you on the concept.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I'm interested on how to see, because I'm getting to that part where I'm going to give my rewrites. It's just you have to find a way to, looking at First Contact, to get them on the Sovereign and then staying there. I don't think it's as bad as people think, because in Battlestar Galactica, the Reimagined, I forget the name of the episode, but it was basically an episode where there were there were Cylons on the Galactica, and they were trying to fight and stop the Cylons, and it was a battle for the ship. So I think you can do that.
Yeah,
And
no, I
think you
agree.
write it well.
I absolutely agree.
And it would basically come down to, like that would happen where they'd find a way to stop them, but then it's all about who makes the first mistake and which side goes through. Who would you have on it, though, in First Contact? Would you combine the crews?
Well, I feel like I've already answered you, but to say it more overtly, I would have there be two battles for the ship going on. There's the battle for DS9, which is most of that crew. Maybe a little mixing. But to be clear, I'd have both casts. Let's just start with that. I would have both full casts. But yeah, I would have the battle for DS9 and I'd have the battle for the Enterprise E, but basically happening at the same time. So instead of cutting to the B plot of the First Contact with Cochrane, it's cutting to the B plot of DS9, also struggling against the drones that are dealing with it, right?
Right.
And that would be the format, the structure of the movie would be bouncing back and forth between those two perspectives. What I'm running into a wall in is, while it's really easy to involve DS9, I already told you how to do that. Borg ignores them, drops some drones, done. How do we involve the Sovereign is something I'm running into a much more difficultly, because they you'll notice in the movie they run through some hoops, like 3 or 4 hoops, to get the Sovereign in a very specific place where their shields are down and their sensors are down, and they don't have someone in engineering, and they think they've won, so their guard is down, and then the Borg show up, and it's like, well, hang on. We've jumped through too many hoops here. Like, I see why, though. As a writer, getting to the point where they're fighting for the ship is actually more difficult than it sounds.
The way I would probably have done that is to have the Sovereign take a lot more. You could have had a fleet at Deep Space Nine that just completely gets obliterated. Well, two ways of doing it. Here's the 2 ways I'd do it. You would either have a fleet there that's fighting. The Sovereign shows up, they save the day, but there's no one left. Like, you even have a line there saying, "Let the rest of the fleet know and prepare to assist DS9." Right, and then Tactical looks up and says, Worf looks up, there's no one else that's here to help DS9, right? As soon as they do that, we then have the Sovereign start having computer issues. And he looks over and says, someone's trying to hack into the system. And so we combine those a little bit quicker than what they did.
Yeah.
And so...
okay, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, so after they thought they defeated the Borg cube, it's destroyed, but it's
and now DS9 is currently and has been under siege.
Yeah, and
so that's why they're like, we need to go deal with that right now.
Yeah, and that's what they focus on for a second. It's like, all right, so DS9 is still under assimilation, and they could even say 20% of the station has been assimilated. Yeah. And so they focus on that, and they're like, we'll get the fleet. There is no fleet. All of a sudden, sir, someone's hacking the system.
I like that. I like that.
The other way to do it is during the battle, the Sovereign, either they shoot the sphere into the wormhole, or the Sovereign loses its engines and goes into the wormhole. But before that happens, again, it lost its shields and you have a Borg on it. And so now they're stuck in the wormhole trying to figure out, or stuck in the wormhole with the Borg. And it would effectively come down to, it doesn't matter which one wins, whether the Borg win on the Sovereign or the Borg win on DS9. If the Borg win either side, both lose. And so they know that, and they have to work together.
I like the overall direction. I think I'd eject the falling into the wormhole thing. I don't think it adds anything to the equation.
Right.
I think just having the Sovereign there, being taken over, damage, still has the exact same premise. Like you say, whether the Borg win on one ship or one station, it's game, like you said. So they both have to. Yeah, I do like that. Even attempting to coordinate, maybe I could actually picture a scene, and I know this is a little bit fan geeky, but I love the idea of someone hopping on board a shuttle, because the shuttle is a disconnected system. It's not part of the WAN.
Right.
and then using the shuttle to communicate. And so they've got to physically go down to the shuttlecraft to communicate with DS9. So they can't perfectly communicate, but they do have the ability to communicate,
Right.
you know?
And you could, but I mean, you could even like stress the point that it doesn't matter if they lose one or the other, they lose it all. Like have Picard say, "Would you like us to send a security team down there?" And basically, Kira's there saying, "No, if you lose the Sovereign will be used to destroy Bajor. Why don't you or use Deep Space Nine? So you need the security team. It doesn't matter. We can't really send it between till one side has been completely taken care of."
Mm-hmm.
I would eject the Queen completely too. Absolutely would eject.
Oh yeah, no. I would eject her as a concept.
Yeah, I don't.
There's
I don't like
the only thing I ever felt the Queen was ever used well for was a single scene in Voyager. You know the scene because you've referenced it. The when she's talking to the kid in the fantasy realm. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That's probably the only scene in all of Trek where I think the Queen was actually well used right there.
Right. Well, it explains the Borg so perfectly. It's we're not they don't believe they're doing anything wrong. They sincerely want to help. That's what makes them terrifying.
Oh yeah, no, I've always believed that. I know that's effectively headcanon, but that has always been my headcanon.
I still think it's also still more of a horror to have all of the Borg talk. So you could even have Data captured, but when Data's talking with them, it's the entire collective, or at least the entire collective on the Sovereign.
Yeah,
that they're discussing. So, but if you're going to have an avatar, also, I mean, I just wouldn't make the Queen. I would do a Locutus thing, but I wouldn't have it Locutus. I'd probably do it to Crusher. I think I've said that. I think Crusher makes the most sense.
Yeah, I've heard you say that.
Would you change it with someone if you could use both DS9 and TNG cast? Who would your avatar be? But not.
Let me start by saying, if I have the creative power, no Queen, right? No avatar, all right? Because, and I've always believed this. Locutus, I've never felt Locutus was an avatar. I've always felt Locutus was their using assimilation as their tool for getting information on the Federation and then using that to crush the Federation. That's how I've always viewed that, rather than we need a central voice. My take on that. Now, having said that, if you put a gun, hang on, I got this stupid prop just for you.
That doesn't work.
So you you put a phaser to my head and you say, okay, you have to have an avatar. It can be one of the two crews. Who do you use in that case?
Because they didn't think the popcorn audience would understand the Borg.
Because they're stupid. I'm sorry. The popcorn audience aren't stupid. I'm sorry. There is
told them to do it.
Actual factual tactile information on sales figures of movies that prove that the audience members, are not stupid. I don't know why that attitude persists. Moving on. By the way, that was a problem in TOS as well. In season 3, this is not a joke. In season 3, they added narration in multiple episodes of TOS that was not part of the script because it was felt by parts of the executive board. I'm not going to name names. I know who it is. But it was felt by someone on the executive board that people would not be able to understand the episode without narration explaining everything.
Is that why they have captain's logs when they're on, like, in the middle of a combat scene?
Yes, that is why that's a thing. Oh my God. All right, back on topic. So we have to have an avatar because you've got the phaser. It's at my head. I'm ready to go. It's not working. I'm really torn on this because I can think of a lot of different options. But what I'm really trying to think of which actor I think could nail that type of role best. And admittedly, I kind of am leaning towards your idea with Crusher because I've seen Gates McFadden act. She's good at it. She's a very theatrical actress. She can definitely pull off the kind of locutus presence that is needed. She doesn't have to go into the full seductive Alice Krieg thing. She could just be, I am the Borg.
Right.
I think she could pull that off. I'm not sure who else I would pick above her for that.
You would have to be beyond on par. I mean, you would have to spend weeks and weeks and weeks on the dialogue and the setup to make sure that it's not turned into a joke.
Yeah.
But just one person that would be interesting is Quark.
Oh my God, no.
But no, just imagine you don't see Quark in the movie at all.
Yeah.
until the midpoint climax. And the midpoint climax is that Quark has been assimilated and he's being used as an avatar. Now, you'd have to do it in a way that, and people would probably hate it, but I think it would be interesting if you could do it in a way, make it serious somehow, and then make it so he influences the Borg to help out, you know?
Have you ever played Jade Empire? It's a video game by BioWare.
I haven't. I think, haven't you played it? I think I've watched you
I
play
have.
it.
I've done a review of it last year. A reason I bring it up is Armin Shimmerman plays the second main villain of that game, right, which I bring up because most people, when they think of Armin Shimmerman, probably think of Quark. I've heard him voice act quite a bit. He can do villainous. He can do that kind of presence behind himself. Not to the extent of Crusher, or not to the extent of Gates McFadden, or most of the other actors, I'm being honest. But my point being, I think that's at least workable. I'd still probably try to talk you down from that.
I mean,
in the meeting room.
It would be an interesting arc, and the way he's helping out. I would take a note from Worst. I think it's Worst of Both Worlds or whatever. And he comes out as the Avatar, and he tries to make a deal with them. And it just confuses the hell out of Picard. Picard's like, what's going on? And then maybe Cisco Cure comes up. He's like, maybe that's Quark trying to influence the Borg to buy us time or whatever. And he tries to, because they assimilated him and they made a distinction, he's trying to make a trade, which could be, I don't know. It's just it's an interesting thing. I could probably be talked out of it easily, especially if I want to make it and make money off of it, because it would be too hard to make it work. I think you could make it work, but you could just use Crusher a lot easier and it not be an issue.
I'm trying to think of the name of the character. Have you ever read Vendetta? It's a Star Trek book by Peter David.
No, I haven't read most of the books, if I'm going to be honest with you.
In that book, there is a daemon who is locutused by the Borg.
Yeah, I thought that was in Worst of Both Worlds. Was that a different one?
I've never heard of Worst of Both Worlds, so I'm going to go with, I don't know.
Is that the book where she figures out, like, they do Warp 10 and the... I don't want to.
That is how it ends. Yes.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking. I don't want to end it, but it was a good way to end it. I remember you talking.
Yeah, that's how they ended. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, in that episode, there is a daemon. There is a Ferengi who is locutused by the Borg and used as the Avatar, and it's played pretty horrifying. Like there's nothing joking about it. He is full on. This is how this thing and vast. Here it is. Terrain. That's it. Vastator, however you say that. Was his Borg name. And yeah, he when he dies, he even says thank you, like, oh God, thank you, at long last I'm being killed. Stuff like it's played very tragically, but
he tries to make a deal, doesn't he, with them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he tries to make a deal with the Borg, and his crew think he is absolutely insane for doing so.
But I mean, as the Avatar, now I'm not saying Quark makes a deal with the Collective. I'm saying they assimilate Quark, and then Quark influences to make
I was just thinking, I have seen a Borg Ferengi before, and it's in that book. That's right. The only reference I was making. And my point is, they made it serious. It wasn't a joke.
Right.
So it is doable, but no.
That would be a lot of work. It would just be a lot of work to make it really pop when you could focus more on other things. And would you have Quark in it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Ignoring the fact that Armin Shimmerman is great, one of the things I've always loved about Quark is that he is a good person, really. It's just he's also a very greedy and selfish person on top of that. In the face of the Borg, he would be on board with this whole thing. And I would love him having at least one moment of genuine heroism in the midst of the whole thing. Not even as a joke. Just, someone in chat actually mentioned the idea of him setting up a bomb in Quark's bar, which takes out one drone. Mm-hmm. And you're probably thinking, oh, that's it. But again, remember, I only was going to beam over 3 drones.
Right.
Just taking out one would just be kind of a holy crap, he actually took one down kind of a moment, and he did it with all these illegal explosives that Odo knew about.
You could. And I mean, if you wanted to add, because there is levity that's in it, if you wanted to add levity, it's like people are hiding in Quarks, and so he puts that together, and then Odo comes up and says, good job, and he's like, yeah, can you believe I hit all that? And he's like, why do you think I let you have that, just in case at some point... I always knew you had that. I would just, in case we would need it at some point,
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, because at that point the Dominion was a very looming threat. By
Right.
that point, the near destruction of the space system has already happened. So,
And that's what Odo says. I couldn't, because of Starfleet regulations, I could never have stuff like that. So I just ignored it when you had it in case we needed it in the back. He indirectly had Quark as a illegal arms trader to stockpile on DS9. That would be hilarious.
actually, it's funny you say that Second Fleet actual, because to me, Odo would be one of the only things helping them keep the Borg from absolutely just smashing over them on DS9.
What did he say to him? The problem with the Borg on DS9
On
is
DS9
Odo?
is Odo for the win.
But I don't. Why would that be a problem?
Well, because the idea there is that Odo. So some people, we could argue back and forth as to whether the Borg could assimilate a changeling, but regardless, a changeling is a very powerful tool.
Right.
And so Odo would be very helpful in actually combating this whole situation.
I don't understand why that's a debate. I'm gonna be honest with you, because the founders are poisoned, and they use actual poison. They actually infect them, and if they can be infected, nanites can be.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. Even ignoring any Borg fanboyism, as you say, if Section 31 can poison the Great Link, I'm pretty sure the Borg could assimilate them.
Yeah, there'd have to be technology that would take care of that. That doesn't make any. I just don't understand why that's a debate. It just doesn't.
But of course, no. Ooh, so hear me out for a second. So Odo is like invaluable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's also effectively a pure glass cannon, because if any drone gets a hold of him, it's game.
Right.
Because they could take him, and he knows this, and everyone knows this. So, and it could be part of his character arc during the movie as he keeps getting more and more frustrated with how he's effectively being sidelined and not helping to the fullest extent because everyone's terrified of throwing him at a drone. You know, and even he himself would probably have the discipline to understand and realize that. And then maybe what I would probably do is I'd have a character moment where someone would effectively die because he could not risk saving them. And that he just has to live with that. Odo just has to live with the fact that in order to spare the rest of the station and Bajor, me being assimilated, I had to watch people die and have that just weigh on him. And I would have that come up about 3 episodes from now when the Dominion take the station. And Odo is now deciding to capitulate to save lives.
Right. I could see that. Another, I think, option, I think that might be the better option, but another option too is that it happens, he sees someone die, he becomes frustrated, and so let's say they've captured Data. That happened already, right? Yeah. He becomes very frustrated when he sees someone die. He says, all right, I'm going to save Data. He just decides that, because that seems like in his. He goes to save Data. He gets captured as well, somehow. Like they do a...
I mean, they can just force field him in.
Yeah, they force filled him in. And he says that, like the drones are talking to him. They're like, he says the second this drops, you're going to be, you can keep me in for right now, but you can't keep me here forever, right? Mm. And then we have the double cross, the double cross of Data, where Data comes with the human skin or whatever on him, and he's holding one of the Romulan devices.
Oh, the thing that prevents him from reverting.
And then he says, this is something the collective... what we do, here's what we do. So during DS9, they're making a beeline for Bajor. Except in 2 episodes, they use a conduit. They're not sure why. They know that they go to Romulan space, but they're not talking to the Romulans or whatever, and they come back, and they have no idea why. And then you bring it up. We found this we found this technology in a Romulan database, and so it ties back to that. And then you add it to that. I wouldn't have them assimilate him. I don't know how I would keep him from being assimilated, but that could be interesting and powerful too, I think. Because if they make him solid, I would assume they can assimilate him if he can't go to liquid form.
I mean, I don't see why they couldn't, but the thing I'm really... let me think about this. If I'm being honest, I don't like that idea because it has too many moving gears to really work. Like, we have to add Data being a betrayal. We have to add the
Well,
Romulan
no,
thing.
it's a
We have to add
fake.
Odo being
Well,
saved.
Data being betrayal was always stupid, but if we kept that, that's how I'd use that betrayal.
I would not keep that. I mean, we're already restructuring. Let's just call it movie 8 rather substantially. So let's just eject that. The only way I could see that working, and this is adding another cog, is if within literally seconds to like minutes, very, very quickly of Odo being taken, they do some absolute last-ditch, desperate, holy crap, death doom attempt to rescue him, succeed, someone dies in the process.
Yeah.
That's the only way I could see that going. And while I'm okay with that idea, that then the thing that made me pause there, the thing that I was stalled and just staring into space was, who do I permanently kill?
All right. Eddington.
Because, well, I thought about Eddington, but we've already established he's a changeling now, so that doesn't work. No, Eddington's too easy. I mean, we could do that. We could have it be Eddington, but I like too much the idea of the arc we have built up for Eddington. I suppose that could be his death. That would drive Sisko batty, wouldn't it? First, he had the guts to actually stand up for his morality. Then he actually decided to lay down his life for an enemy.
Right. Well, he does that at the end. That could be the Javert moment.
It could be. That could be what really, because that would also help to explain, if I might continue to tie things together here character-wise, that would help to explain part of why Sisko is so adamant about absolutely no backing down and absolutely no capitulation during season 6, because that's a recurring point in the actual show. Every time someone mentions some idea of peace or pulling back or we should surrender or we should sabotage our own efforts in order, you remember the genetically engineered super people, they come up with that. Every time this comes up, Sisko's like, no. Now that's fine, and that makes sense because Sisko would probably have that anyways. But if we have the Eddington part of Sisko's character arc for the last 5 seasons come to that conclusion, Sisko seeing that resistance is not futile,
right,
could then really help bolster him, morally speaking, to do what he ends up doing. And this, of course, leads directly into In the Pale Moonlight, where resistance was not futile,
right,
where he was willing to go that extra mile. Which I'd restructure that episode too. Let's not get into that.
You could have Eddington, and again, it may be too much because the focus, the main thing would be the Picard and Sisko switch and them having to come together. Yeah. But if we were going to do that, I would have them have captured Eddington like within the last couple, and he was still on DS9, about to be transferred when they attacked. Mm-hmm. And that's Eddington's pitch. He's because maybe Sisko, or well, I guess it would be Sisko. Sisko's like, no, you're staying in there, and Eddington's like, I'm a resource. I know
this
the
is stupid.
station.
Why are you keeping me in here? There's Borg on the promenade. Right.
I mean, I'm not
Let me out of here. And then he runs and he gets shot in the back by a phaser.
Right, that's exactly it. Because he makes it look like he's running away instead of...
It does. It's the only way. Real quick, in chat, someone asked with money, with the Borg tech on DS9, could they have held the takeover on the TV show?
I would say DS9 would have, because it happens 2 episodes after. I would have it be so weakened that's why they can't hold it. That's what I would
Absolutely. do. No, I agree completely. I would literally have there be some set changes as they're still cleaning things up when the Dominion have already taken over. Right. You remember how in the actual episode they run a program to smash the station so it's all wrecked? No need for that. The station's already wrecked. It's already half bored. So that's what the Dominion, because it serves the same narrative point of slowing the Dominion down. So it would actually slot in neatly and just replace the need for that. The second question, or it's not even a question, was have Wesley come back and have him be the permakill.
Right.
No.
Oh yeah.
That would involve bringing Wesley back, first of all.
I'm okay if we're going to kill him off. I'm okay with that.
No, he's off being a god right now.
Oh, okay.
By the way, we're ejecting the hell out of that. We're getting rid of the Traveler, or at least how he functions, and we're getting rid of the Traveler in his second iteration, which is just, what the crap were they thinking? What is the name of that stupid episode? Homeward? Is that it? Is that the one?
Wouldn't be surprised if it was called
that's
the Traveler.
That's the Prime Directive one. It's really late. There it is. Journey's End, season 7, episode 20. It's almost one of the last episodes of the show. Was the freaking Journey's End, hey, I'm a god now and I'm going off with the Traveler.
And Wesley, for some reason, is just a jerk. He's like, I can't.
Yeah, he's a total dick for almost the entire episode.
For no reason. Like, wasn't what they said, well, we're just bored, or he's bored or Something
No,
like
it was, oh God. I'll talk about this in the rumination, which hasn't gone live yet, but it was about one of the writers. I think it was Pillar, but I forget whom. One of the producers was like, "Man, I just really want to capture that rebellious teenage spirit I had when I wanted to do X, but my parents wanted me to do Y." And so they brought in that director who's not a good director, who took that and said, "Okay, he turned to Will Wheaton, be a dick." And he just directed Wheaton to be an ornery asshole in every scene. And it
how old was he in that too? He was like 20. How old was Wesley supposed to be?
oh God,
20?
I don't know. Hang
20s,
on.
I guess. Because he graduated, or he was about to graduate, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was on the verge of graduation. He wasn't there yet.
And what is that? Is the academy 2 years? How many?
Hang on. You're gonna make me look it up. Okay, so 2348 is when he was born, and that was Nemesis. So that's 2 years before that. So he would have been 20. That does not make sense.
He would have been 26. I mean, that fits for the character. No wonder he's grumpy.
That cannot be right.
He's
Hang
a
on.
30-year-old cadet.
That cannot be right. Hang on. Give me a second.
It goes back to, I guess, when you're Picard's son, it doesn't matter how old you are.
Hang on. So there's season 1. Give me a second. There's oh my God, this is just.
He's a 30-year-old cadet.
So that's season 6. So it would have been 70. So that means he was 22.
Okay, that makes more sense.
He was 22 years old in season 7. He was 22 years. Hadn't yet graduated. That makes sense, though, if it's a 2 or 4 year thing.
Yeah, it could be a 4-year academy. So.
Yeah. So, okay, that does line up. I don't know how old he was. That is to say, Wheaton was at that point.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. It's just I was looking at his character. Because his character acted... I mean, 21, 22-year-olds can act like jerks, too, but just constantly doesn't make any sense. Especially someone who's, like, in the military, is about to leave. Didn't he get held back, too? Which would, I guess, make some sense, because he got a guy killed.
That's true. He did. He had to redo a grade.
Right. I
forgot about that.
So, I mean, I guess that can make sense. But yeah, looking back at it, how would you end it though? How would you have them defeat? How would you have first contact?
Have them defeat the that's so.
I would have the lead up. So the final encounter, the thing that happened before, instead of Lily and Picard, it would be Cisco and Picard, where Picard was about to like sacrifice everything, and Cisco's like, "You're being stupid. This is not how we're going to do it." And maybe that's the thing. Maybe Cisco ultimately says, "Look, there's no way that." He either says, "Hey," because Picard wants to fight for the Sovereign. He's not going to give it up. He's not going to give up the Enterprise. And Cisco is like, "Hey, the actual ball game is Deep Space Nine. If we give up the Sovereign, we'll have more resources on Deep Space Nine. We blow the hell out of this thing, and we get everyone onto the station, and then we retake the station. We combine forces instead of being done right here." And that's where they have the face off. And Cisco just talks him into it. He's like, and he could even go back. He's like, "I understand wanting to stay on a ship that you have to get rid of, having a connection on that ship," and referring back to his wife who died on it. "I understand not being able to be removed from a ship because you love it so much. But there's more important things that you have to do."
I know this is going to sound... So, can I give a little bit of lore tips, especially for your viewers out there?
Yeah. The Jem'Hadar show up and save the day?
Yes. No, I actually legitimately thought about that for a millisecond and immediately discarded it because that's a terrible idea. No, as a writer, one of the things I almost always use as a writer is I prompt something and then I try to explain the lead up or connecting points, right? That's kind of how I write. I'll write something and I'll say, okay, how many other things do I have to explain to make this thing make sense, right? And I come up with that list and I write each of those and I say, okay, how many things do I have to explain to make this? It's like a web, right? Now you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with this topic? What do we do with the Enterprise D in the 7th movie?
In the 7th movie?
Yeah.
It's destroyed.
Generations.
Right?
Well, I mean, it could be destroyed or it could not, because its destruction means nothing for the purposes of that movie. hear me out for a second. What if the thing? So okay, let me talk this out a little bit. Sorry, I tend to think in seven directions at once. You know me, because I can picture this whole cloth now. You've given me a great idea. A movie, by its very structure and nature, has to have some kind of climax.
Right.
That's the nature of film. It doesn't have to be loud or expansive or explosive, but there does need to be a big conclusive moment. You've seen Star Trek 3, right?
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this. The idea here is it's still the D. It's been the D all movie because the D wasn't destroyed. It's the Galaxy class. It's the Enterprise that we've known for TNG, which wasn't destroyed in the previous movie because there's no reason for it to be.
Right.
But now what this now makes Picard's "the line must be drawn here," blah blah blah, sound a lot more important, a lot more powerful, because this is his freaking ship that he's been the captain of for 8 years at this point.
Right.
Or 9 years, excuse me, 9 years at this point. This is his ship, his home that he is unwilling to, the line must be drawn, blah, 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 blah. It's the same speech, but now there's that extra layer. It's like you were talking about in your video today, because there is that extra layer, there's more.
Right.
It means more now. Thus, the big climax, I was running into the wall on this because how do you have a big climax with this? What we've designed is a situation that's more realistic, where there's no one big battle. Instead, what would probably happen is they very slowly manage to push the Borg back. But because it's a film, we have to have a big climactic thing. Here's the solution. The destruction of the Enterprise is actually the climactic final fight. Making it happen, accepting that. Picard accepting the destruction of his ship and then having to actually fight to make it happen as the Borg are struggling to prevent the ship from being destroyed would then become the final battle of the movie. And with the destruction of the Enterprise, they beam over to DS9 and it becomes more of a cleanup action because now they have far more resources and the Borg have just been cut off from half of theirs. The Borg aren't infinite.
Right.
3 drones are a threat, but that's a threat that can be managed, right?
Right. Well, I wonder, and maybe it's too unrealistic, but somehow they gain control of the transporters on one but not the other. You could do that too. Somehow on Deep Space Nine, they regain control of their transporters. And that's the discussion. Like Cisco is talking with him. He says, we have control of the transporters. We're not going to for long. Let's get all the Borg off of Deep Space Nine and blow the hell out of this ship.
Yeah.
And then that becomes they have to distract them long enough and keep them on there before they escape.
Now,
how else would you do that?
Well, no, your idea and my idea both run into the same problem, which I think we could solve. But what we need to decide is who dies. Right. Someone has to either stay behind on the Enterprise to ensure its destruction. In fact, I literally have a mental picture of all of the self-destructs failing and them finally just setting off a phaser next to the warp core. And that's what actually detonates the warp core, which destroys the ship, which saves the day. Or, in your case, who's going to stay behind to distract the ship long enough for them to beam the Borg off of it in order to... Both have that crux of someone effectively needing to sacrifice themselves in order to make sure this happens.
Right. I would say it has to be the TNG crew because the DS9 still have a series that we got to deal with.
Very true.
And Silidor, I think Silidor had the idea that I was going to do. Let's just Sildir. Let's just use Data because
I was thinking the same direction. Yeah.
I think at that point or near that point, he wanted to kill off Data anyway for some reason, and it just makes...
He did. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and near that point, he wanted to kill off Data. So let's do it that way. Let's have Data, and again, you could even write it where Data was captured, and it's this whole... I'm not a huge fan of it, but if we were going to write it,
let's eject the Data capture. Let's just we're both against that idea. We don't need to workshop that. Let's just Thanos that out, and we're done.
And one thing you could do too, though, is you could have like they did with in the Voyager episode with the the 31st Century Borg or whatever.
Oh yeah, one.
Yeah, Data decides for however reason, Data decides he's the one that's going to give his life, and then he just starts walking through the Borg. Like he goes down there, and they do the assimilation is whatever, resistance is futile, and he's like, "Watch me," and he just starts walking through what they're going through, just like literally snapping necks. I mean, you have to make it a little more realistic, because why wouldn't he do that at the beginning? But still, you can give it.
No, we could work. I think we can make that work, and I think Data's a good pick for sacrifice, because at that point, we, the audience, are losing 2 characters to defeat the Borg, right? Mm-hmm. We're losing the Enterprise, which I don't care what anybody says. The Enterprise is a character. We're losing the Enterprise, and we're losing Data in the process, and that would be sufficiently powerful and scarring, and leave the marks necessary that an encounter with the Borg probably should leave. You're not supposed to walk away from the Borg unscathed, which is what they did in First Contact.
What could be interesting too. I don't know if it would be too fan servicey or you want to do it, but for whatever reason, Picard and Sisko have to leave via a shuttle or leave via an escape pod. Mm-hmm. And you have the exact same, almost a reenactment of Emissary, where Picard's looking out and he sees it explode right in front of him right after they've done it. I don't know. I think that would be interesting too.
I like the idea. We could restructure that if we had to. Like, if nothing else, if we just went with the transporter idea, he could be on ops,
right, and just looking
and staring out the window in like same angle, same camera, right, same reflection,
and then just says goodbye, just a soft goodbye or something like that.
Probably not even audible. Just you see him mouth it, something like that.
And then again, and I think that leads directly into what happens in the next few episodes. The only real issue is the Dominion getting Borg tech, but you could explain that away where the Borg.
We could walk around that. Yeah. I think there's ways to move that around. So and that, as you say, and as we both said at this point, this beautifully sets up for the Dominion occupation,
right?
Which is like the 6 or 7 episodes at the very beginning of season 6, and just that's what happens next. Is because the Borg came in and stomped. Now the Dominion just walk in. And Sisko, is like, hey, you should sign a non-aggression treaty because we can't do anything about this right now.
Right. Yeah.
We're on the back foot. Could you? Bajor needs to sign this treaty, but Emissary, we are prepared. No, you need to sign this treaty, okay?
Because I mean, that makes even more sense. They don't have the station to defend, and so. I mean, even a fleet, you're fighting for, that would make more sense on why to give up, because honestly, not fighting for the wormhole is a massive mistake.
Oh God, I can't believe they did that. Yeah. Let's just give away, like they even say at the end of the arc, the most important real estate in the Alpha Quadrant is the wormhole. And of course it is. Why did you walk away from it without actually, whatever. So no, I like that. I like that a lot. Do you want to cut it here? I don't know what your schedule looks like.
Are you trying?
But we should totally we should totally keep doing this. It's just the next place I want to jump is the rest of the TNG movies, because all of them need to be restructured because of this.
Here's what we should do. Actually, instead of this, we should uniform it. We should make this like a week series that you and me do,
and just do the Trek rewrite every week.
Yeah, do the Trek rewrite, but start like, instead of just jumping from movie, we can either do the movies first or whatever, or just start rewriting the entirety of do like what you did with Voyager.
Viewers at home, what do you think? Type 1 or Y or something similar if you like the idea of Lauren, me, and you jumping in and just talking about this, because I don't know about him. He doesn't read chat. He hates you guys, but I love you guys. You guys are awesome. I read chat often. I'm very used to it.
Well, I read chat too, but I'm more interested in having a conversation. They're all going to say 1, by the way. They've been loving this. I've been reading.
Nah, they're not going to do it. They're going to hate it. They hate it.
But now they don't know. Now they're doing 1. Now they're doing Y. Some are doing 1Y.
It's okay. You give people multiple options. They all mean the same thing. That's how you run a dictatorship. Anyway,
I mean, if we did it though, I think I would honestly either suggest doing all of the movies first, or doing the series. And then I don't think we should do it episode by episode, but maybe
no. Strokes, broad strokes.
Yeah.
Like maybe seasons.
Right. Well, I mean, we want to make as much money off this as possible, so maybe
you want to make money. This is just my evening. That's all this is for me.
Oh, don't act. You know I'm paying you to do this.
Now, He doesn't pay me anything. He beats me every weekend. It's so I like the idea of focusing on the movies first for two reasons. First of all, as I said, I like to write and then write connecting points.
Right.
Starting with the movies is great initial points because then we'd have to rewrite around them to accomplish it. We've already done that. We did this today. We have rewritten part of season 5 and season 6 DS9 because of rewriting First Contact. So
Right.
I do absolutely think we should start with the movies. Go back to Generations, probably. Move forward to Insurrection. Move forward to do something with Nemesis. And then from there, we could decide. But I do think we should hit those 4 movies first.
We'll have to discuss it a little bit more. I will have to go in a minute or two because you make a good point because I got the kids and everything. You and me will have to get together then, and we'll have to set some rules too so that we don't just, like you said, just rewrite our own thing.
Yeah. Blank sheet of paper is a problem too.
Yeah, we can't blank sheet of paper it. We have to keep some standards there. Like maybe if the execs demand it, like, because you know the back research though, so things that the execs demanded, we have to keep, which would then make it fun because Kirk Shatner would count as an exec, I think. For,
oh God,
so
Star Trek V rewrite would be interesting.
Yeah, because we would have to keep the him being the ultimate, everybody turning on him, the god. That would be a very intriguing way of having to write. But yeah, we'll get on the background. And also the other thing that's probably going to hit you hard is that in theory we're still doing this with Jesse. We're supposed to be doing the D&D thing. So this is another thing to add to your schedule.
Yeah, that is a fair thing.
You've already agreed to it though, so you're just gonna have to find time. Either that, we're gonna tell
great.
Jesse. Either that, we'll tell Jesse. Sorry, we decided to do something on our own.
All I have to do is somehow have more. I'm committing to 2 additional hours of work every day, starting tomorrow, and now I have to.
And now 2 more, so now you got 4 additional.
I'm gonna die. It's just my head's going to just pop like a balloon. It's gonna be over.
Well, I mean, according to this anyway, this is all pre-recorded. I've already seen.
Well, I mean, obviously, we don't actually interact with chat. That's all a bunch of actors we hired to respond to us in chat. Lots of people have been bringing up the Star Trek V rewrite ideas. That's so hard. That's going to be a challenge.
I really do.
5.
Yeah. Well, and I think because again, you'd have the knowledge. I think that we have to keep whatever the. That means we'd have to redo this too. But I think there has to be some semblance. We'd have to keep the Queen if we do that too.
No, see, here's what I'm thinking. What we should do. This is my opinion. We should say the executives have mandated X, Y, and Z. We don't have to do all of them, but we have to pick and choose our poison.
Right.
What do you think of that idea?
Yeah.
So, for example, let me give you a direct example. Star Trek V, Kirk is awesome, lighthearted flick, all unified, break apart unified, and search for God. There's the 4 mandates. We have to pick from these.
Right.
We do have to do at least some of these, probably 2 in this case. So we have to pick and choose and decide how do we do this. Like we did with First Contact, we involved the deep and personal story with Picard. Mm-hmm. We involved the Borg, and that's admittedly probably it, if I'm being honest with myself. But that's still 2 mandates, which is still part of the movie that we have still done. The only thing we ejected was the Queen and the time travel.
Right. And we could even give options for that while we're discussing it, if we were to do it. Just don't focus on it all that much. Because we even discussed, if we had to do time travel, we discussed how to do it.
We did the gun. We'll just call it the phaser to the head. Okay, so hang on. Now we have to do Star Trek V, and we have to include God at the center of the universe. What do we do with it?
Right.
The first thing we do is we call him the One, and some of you will get that reference. That's it. I'm just making a reference. Don't mind me.
All right. So, yeah, we'll... let us know. I'll keep this up in the comments what you think. We'll probably do that. We'll do the we'll start with the movies, and then I think again, I know I made the joke about the money, but I don't think we should do the season. I think we should do like half seasons, just because that's a lot of information. Yeah, because that's a lot of information for one season. You know, that's a lot of things.
I agree. Yeah.
So he says straw poll. Before we go, what am I straw polling on the community tab specifically? Do a straw poll for what?
Do people, I assume it's, do you want us to do this?
Oh, no. I mean, they are. I mean, people have been talking about this a lot, and it's going to get a lot of things. So I know.
The Sovereign isn't actually a mandate if you think about it. The Sovereign is just a byproduct of the destruction of the galaxy back in the previous film. That's not a mandate.
Yeah.
That's just a logical consequence. And if we're restructuring that, I mean, you do agree with me, right? The galaxy being destroyed here as a final gesture, as a final way to defeat the Borg by Picard would fit a whole lot better than, oh no, we've been defeated by a 20-year-old bird of prey for no reason.
Right.
Let's go ahead and collide with a planet we've never heard of, and then get destroyed when the star goes nova.
Right. And I mean, you can still have your Sovereign. You just push it one movie out and it'll make
no, next movie we'll bring in the Sovereign, absolutely.
So they say generic options. I don't understand. So what they want to do the straw poll for is generic options. I don't
know that. I'm sorry.
We're
I'm too stupid. I don't understand that.
Yeah, so do generic options as a straw poll.
I mean, I know how to do straw poll. I do it pretty regularly. In fact, I have a poll right now as a fresh reminder about the Ubisoft issue for anybody who cares about that.
What's going on with Ubisoft again?
No.
It's not worth talking about.
Nope, we're done. It is something that is being debated, and I'm letting the viewers decide. That's what it is.
They destroyed the D because it wasn't movie worthy, and the model was a pain to work with.
That is true.
Okay, but I mean, but again, you have to look at it overall too. Randomly destroying the D. Just look at why you don't do that. Look at how it's looked at now. That's why you don't do that. So I mean, you could make the argument to make more money, you use it like this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so what are you guys saying? So I need to know what the straw poll is, and then we're getting off. Why can't they answer?
I don't know.
It's kind of like the Borg cube.
Well, I mean, you've got this delay problem.
Well, yeah, there is
with
that.
YouTube streaming. So that's at least part
it gets worse as it goes too. So if someone
if
someone had started at the beginning, so we are an hour 30 in. If they started in the beginning, they're about 20 minutes behind. I don't know how they do it. It's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. YouTube is trying to match Twitch. They're never going to do it if they keep it up.
And they're failing. Yeah, they're failing miserably. Like there is a convenience. It's auto VODed, which prevents the VOD process, but it takes me approximately 20 seconds to VOD my videos from Twitch to YouTube.
Oh yeah, it takes like 6 hours.
It's nothing. It's just, okay, set the upload. I already have templates written down, and set the thumbnail, done. And I'm done. And then I just walk away from it because it'll upload in like 3 minutes.
Right. So what I'll do the poll on is I'll ask how they want us to split up. We'll do movies for sure, and then maybe if they want to do arcs or whatever, and then we'll go for that. Okay. I feel like my 2 comments were taken too seriously.
You are actually the that sounds like an insult. I was gonna say you're the Rick Berman of the chat, but I don't mean that like that. I don't mean that like that.
Man, he would probably be removed from this chat. I don't deal with
yes,
sexists,
he would.
So that
no,
well.
you're the Ira Stephen Bear of the chat, Ventura. We have to listen to you. You're the one who's actually holding the phaser to our heads, and we have to do whatever you say. And we could just eject the galaxy being removed from the previous movie as a thing if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, an interesting piece to add to it, though, is if we eject something that was a requirement, we have to give a really good reason. We have to be able to justify it as if we were justifying it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I would make the argument.
Which I feel like we've done, consequently.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like, if I would make the argument that just randomly destroying it like that is disrespectful to the fans and just won't do well. And you'll make more money.
That was... God, that for generations, I swear to God. Anyways, yeah.
What is it with Rick's? I love Red Letter Media references. All right, guys, we're going to end. We'll talk about it on the back end. And, so I guess Runner is not going to have, like, a life at all, ever. It's like the sleep time.
I'm going to bed pretty much right after this because I'm going to be up early tomorrow.
No, but I'm saying now we got to find extra time. It's going to be great. You're going to love it.
It's wonderful.
Hey, don't forget to check him out. If you enjoy this, go to lorerunner.com. You can also check him at twitch.tv/thelorerunner, where basically this is what he does a lot of this. He has lore runs. His ruminations are effectively a lot like this. He has a great series. But don't forget to comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and go check him out, lorerunner.com. And for him to do this, he does need to justify it, guys. So if at any point you have the ability or you have a little coin, you should consider maybe becoming a patron of his and saying, hey, I want to fund, because he does. I got the funding idea from him. I want to fund you going onto Lore's channel. Anyway,
that is how I do it. Yeah.
We will see you guys on the